The Cleveland Cavaliers were tested for drugs right on the heels of the 71-point performance from Donovan Mitchell. It's almost like the Cavaliers fans can't get a break. ESPN has confirmed that the Cavs underwent tests for performance-enhancing drugs as per the team's statements. Maybe Mitchell played a little too well to believe. Random testing is also not completely out of the norm though. Either way, it's pretty interesting news. Let's dive into it. First up, Cleveland Cavaliers tested for drugs. Just a day after the All-Star Donovan Mitchell scored a historic 71-point game for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the entire team was issued tests for performance-enhancing drugs. ESPN confirmed with the team that this all happened on Tuesday afternoon. That said, this isn't entirely out of the norm. We've all known that players get tested every now and then. Usually there are 4 random tests for performance-enhancing drugs during the season, and then another 2 during the off-season. This is decided according to the collective bargaining agreement that's been signed between the NBA and the National Basketball Players Association. Now, Mitchell was extraordinary in the Cavaliers' victory against the Chicago Bulls on Monday night. In a 145-143 overtime victory, he managed to score the most points that an NBA player has scored, with the exception of Kobe Bryant. Back on the 22nd of January in 2006, Bryant managed to score 81 points in a game against Toronto, which is still an unbeaten record. Well, Mitchell now stands in the second place spot. Up next, Mitchell's comments about the whole deal. Okay, so after the game, Mitchell went on to Twitter to reply to his teammate, Robin Lopez. Lopez had tweeted that he was going to get it out of the way and pointed out that he, alongside his teammate Mitchell, had managed a combined 72 for the night. #historic game, he wrote. Mitchell replied to the tweet with a witty comeback, announcing that, just like that, they were drug tested right that morning. Mitchell had a historic outburst. With 22-24 from the field, he made 7 of the total 15 three-pointers. He also managed to score 13 points in overtime. These heroics helped the Cavaliers come back from a deficit of 21 points, and that's how they managed to beat the Chicago Bulls. Looking at the controversies from the match, Mitchell may have awed us all with his historic outburst, but the match was not entirely controversy-free. If you've seen the NBA's last 2-minute report, which came out a day later on Tuesday afternoon, you'll know that it says some critical things. Apparently, Mitchell ought to have been called for a lane violation. This was on a missed free throw with just 4.1 seconds left in regulation. He grabbed his own offensive rebound right after missing the free throw. This score was the game-tying layup to force overtime. The Chicago Bulls coach, Billy Donovan, also spoke about this to the reporters after the game on Monday night in Cleveland. He said that this maneuver made it very hard for Patrick Williams to block out Mitchell. This is because Mitchell was right across the free throw line immediately before the ball hit the rim. On the other hand, Mitchell added to a total of 11 assists. This is by far the most assists by a player in a 70-point game in all of NBA history. Can you believe it? Mitchell scored or assisted a total of 99 points for the Cavaliers. This is record-breaking. It's the most points scored by any player since Wilt Chamberlain made the NBA record of a 100-point game. Up next, should the 71 points have been allowed? If Mitchell really did intentionally miss his free throw to send the game into overtime, then his 71 points shouldn't have been allowed at all. At least, that's what the NBA says. As Donovan said, this was a clear violation. He definitely crossed the line on the basket even before the ball touched the rim. What's more, according to the Bulls coach, the only reason why he had managed to beat Patrick was that he went in there far too early. Even Casey Johnson tweeted about the comments made by Donovan. He said that Donovan still acknowledged that the Bulls needed to block much better, though this violation didn't justify the Bulls for their inability to block, plus the missed assignment. Still, the violation discussion was nothing but an afterthought. Mitchell ended up scoring 13 more points in overtime. This added up to a total score of 71. And well, as you know, the rest is history. Coming up, up, why was the drug test conducted? The drug test happened to be scheduled right after Mitchell's historic outburst. On one hand, this could be a pure coincidence because of the agreed-upon randomized testing. On the other hand, it's almost funny to think that Mitchell's performance was so out of this world that the Cavaliers had to be subjected to a test for performance-enhancing drugs to make sure it was real. Still, Mitchell didn't make too big a deal of it. He took it in his stride and even managed to see the funny side of things. You can clearly tell from his tweet that he wasn't offended much, but instead decided to be witty. Drug tests aside, Mitchell showed the performance of a lifetime. If only it wasn't marred by discussions of drug tests and NBA violations, right? We're pretty stoked to have seen this game all the same. Mitchell sure made history. Looking at the comparison between Mitchell and Bryant, both Donovan Mitchell and Kobe Bryant have established themselves as record setters in the game of basketball. Mitchell is officially the 7th player ever to score 70 or more points due to his recent 71-point bonanza on the 2nd of January 2023. Still, he couldn't quite manage to break the record for most points scored by a non-center. This record is still held by the legendary Kobe Bryant from the time he managed to score 81 points against the Raptors. This game happened 17 years ago. That's right, folks. Bryant has held this record for almost 2 decades. Moving on, Chuck Swirsky's comments on Mitchell v. Bryant. Now, one lucky man was the announcer for both matches, 17 years apart. His name is Chuck Swirsky. Swirsky was present for both the games where Mitchell and Bryant set their records. At first, he was a television announcer for the Raptors in the match where Kobe Bryant scored 81 points against them. This time around, however, he was doing radio for the Chicago Bulls when Mitchell crossed the 70-point mark. That said, Swirsky himself is the ultimate pro. He did his absolute best not to get wrapped up in the historical significance of the moments in either of the games, and still managed to stay clear-headed while calling those games. Speaking with The Sporting News, he said that as a broadcaster, he had a responsibility to bring the integrity of the game to the people listening or watching. In fact, according to him, this is the #1 goal. He wants to report exactly what he sees in front of him. His other aim is to make sure that his reporting isn't clouded by the bias of a team or player. Now for Swirsky's take on Kobe and Donovan making history. Even though Swirsky tries his absolute best to stay objective, he just couldn't help himself this time around. According to him, when it comes to the cases of Kobe and Mitchell, it becomes the storyline. People in Staples and in Cleveland all knew it. They were getting the basketball no matter what. In fact, both the Raptors and the Bulls knew that these two opposing players were going to get the ball, and there was nothing they could have done to stop them. Swirsky found both memories pretty amazing. He said that the fact that both players were able to get something, whether it was double-teamed or not, was exactly what made the moment so great. And even though the entire opposing team was doing its level best to go after Kobe and Donovan, the two just couldn't be contained. Following up, the similarities and differences between the two. Swirsky was ready to point out both the similarities and the differences between the two players. Apparently, both of them had put the entirety of the franchise on their backs. They just simply refused to lose or back down. Still, both of them did it with different attitudes. Swirsky was actually pretty interested in the differences in personalities between the two. Apparently, Kobe used to wear a sneer on his face. He had a pretty ferocious expression. On the other hand, Mitchell is completely different in terms of personality. He can be a little joyful when it comes to the game. Kobe was sorta different though, because he was so immersed in every single play. What the two of them had in common, however, was the capability of performing on a big stage. Like, both of them were just serial winners, especially during moments where it counted most. And not everyone can be like that. For instance, back when Devin Booker scored a 70 in 2017, the Suns still ended up losing. So at the end of the day, even if you score a lot of points, you've still got to win to prove your worth. Finally, Swirsky says that Kobe and Mitchell are well respected. Now, for Swirsky, the opposing team was frustrated in both instances. You could see it in the Raptors because their coach ended up trying everybody. Sam Mitchell sent Chris Bosh, Mo Peterson, Jose Calderon, Matt Bonner, and Mike James. You name it, and it still wasn't enough. When the team was on the plane ride to Denver after the match, there was pin drop silence in the aircraft. This is because, despite all the respect the Raptors had for Kobe Bryant, an 81 was beyond what they could take. At the same time, the Bulls were devastated by the big loss. This is especially true because they had such a big lead, but still lost somehow. Though, no matter which NBA player you speak to, they all have respect for one another. And Swirsky was proud of this fraternity, in which players all admired each other's skill sets so much. Besides, his words do make sense. The basketball fraternity is one in which players are constantly talking each other up and recognizing one another's talents. So even though the Bulls coach was upset about the alleged violation by Mitchell, he still acknowledged that his team just hadn't been good enough at blocking. At the end of the day, this kind of earnest attitude is what makes this sport worth watching. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Mitchell made a violation and his 71 points shouldn't have been allowed? How would you compare his career to that of Kobe Bryant? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you for the next video.